I am going to reveal why pros get so much space in attack and you don't, no matter which tactics or formation you use. Hear me out. We're going to talk about manual runs, how to create space, as well as a secret that not many people talk about. Let's get straight into it. Most of the games that you are watching over here is plus 15 elo in Weekend League. I'm not playing rivals nowadays, so I am going to show you Weekend League footage. Like it's a rank 1 gameplay, so it's all good. Alright? So, guys, obviously, manual runs means using L1 and R1. L1, but saying click L1 to tell your player to run, click R1 to call your player shot, that is too basic. This is not what I'm going to teach you today. As you know, I am a coach and I coach many players. And the biggest problem I see, and the most common problem I see, is that players don't get space. And why they don't get space, today we are going to discuss. They are unable to beat the press. And when they are in the opponent's half, they say, no matter which formation we play, no matter which tactics we use, they work for a while, but after a few days, after a few games, they simply stop working. Now, the reason is because you haven't learned the game itself. Fundamentals are the key. Before we break the goals down, listen to me. Fundamentals are important. Without mastering them, you cannot go far. I tell people to find the space, exploit the space. Finding the space is easy, but exploiting the space is hard. Knowing when to use the lob through pass, knowing when to use the ground through pass, knowing when to use L1, knowing when to use R1, knowing when to use driven passes. These are all part of fundamentals that we are going to discuss today. All right. So let's focus. This is very basic. But look, I always tell you to play the ball in triangles. Many people tell me that we are unable to find triangles. Is this a triangle? It is. Does it mean that I need to pass in this triangle? Not necessarily, but I can later create this triangle between these three players. So we have Fernandes, we have Martinelli, we have Werner. All right, so see what we do. We click L1 and we tell Martinelli he starts running, okay? Once he starts running, see, we know what we know about the triangle. What is this? This is a triangle. It's not a perfect triangle. It doesn't need to be a perfect triangle, but as long as it's some sort of triangle and you are involving three players in attack, that is good to go. Over here, I did use a give and go with Martinelli. Sometimes you have to use give and go. Sometimes you have to tell players to run. All right, but it is how you use that space. Now we know that the opponent is committing up with Varane. This is a mistake most FC players make. So what do? We exploit it because simply we told him to run. And we had the understanding of using a triangle. We had the understanding of involving three players in attack. See, once again, we have told Peter Crouch to run. We know that he is running. So what do? We use a player lock, fake the run of Peter Crouch, and instead we use Mbappe. And now Mbappe is through on goal. We have the space. We have to exploit the space. These are the tactics that I am using, which I showed you a few days ago on my channel. Once again, I have told Martinelli to run. And see what happens. Is he running? Opponent sees that. Yes. But who did we pass the ball to? We passed the ball to Werner. We used a fake dummy run. Right? It is all about using these things strategically. If I tell someone that tell your players to run, what do they do? They start clicking L1 and spamming it. No, that is not what you have to do. Instead, you have to actually digest this information and get on to what I'm trying to say. Look, guys. What is this? This is the radar. This will allow us to see where the space is. If we see even a pocket of space, we are going to use that because the attacking AI is dumb. We have to, in this situation, use the player lock, which is L3 plus R3, and then move our player in this space and ask for a triangular through pass. We do that, then we use the step overs, okay? But now still there are many players. We tell Mbappe to run and we will only use him as a dummy. See, what do? We end up scoring this goal. Now, guys, I want you to pay attention to this. Many people tell me that after we watch the video of you or anyone else on YouTube, we play good for a few matches. Afterwards, we are back to our old ways. Why is that? Before we break down goals, let me explain this because this is important and I've not seen many people within the FIFA scene talk about it, guys. See, there are two minds. One is the conscious mind and the other is the subconscious mind. I guess we know that, right? So there are two parts of the brain rather. Now, our habits are formed subconsciously. Okay. Think of driving. When you first started to learn driving, it was very uncomfortable, right? You didn't know what you were doing and you were very conscious of what you were doing and it messed it up. Afterwards, you did enough practice on the road. You kept practicing. You did the right kind of practice with the right instructor. What happened? You developed the correct habits subconsciously. Now that you have developed correct habits subconsciously, that driving isn't more of a problem for you. It's something that you can do, right? It's something you can do while multitasking. Not that I'm advising it, but I'm giving an example. How easy it is to drive once it is subconscious, right? Same is with our other habits, whether it be FIFA or any other game or any other real life skill. It also involves muscle memory, which is a part of our subconscious mind as well. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you have developed wrong habits of, let's say, rushing the play, of going from your center back to the central midfielder. How many years have you been doing this? For how many games have you been doing this? For how many games? Maybe 400, 500, 1000, or 3 years or 4 years you have been making this mistake. And then when you watch my video and I tell you, okay, don't go from CB to CM. From CB, go to the left back or the right back first. Play the ball in triangles. You're conscious of it. You might mess up in the start, but for a few days you practice it, right? And then you're like, okay, I'm getting a hang of it. But what happens? It doesn't actually become a part of your subconscious mind or a part of your muscle memory. And then you lose one game and then you're like, okay, screw this. I'm just going to stick to what I know, so I don't have to put in much conscious effort. What happens then? You go back to your old ways. You don't do enough conscious practice, right? In order to make something subconscious or a part of our muscle memory, we have to use repetition and correct kind of repetition. You don't do enough repetition. So that is why you go back to your old ways. Once you go back to your old ways, you get the same results over and over again. That is why I tell people, when you are learning something new in this game, whether it be triggering manual runs, finding the space, exploiting the space, you first have to overwrite the old programming, the old systems, the old beliefs regarding the game. Once you override them with correct repetition for at least 21 days, you have formed a new habit. And once you have formed the new habit, in the long run, you're going to improve. Now back to the game. By the way, what I just said is a crucial part of gameplay, which is taught to the pros as well. It's not something people teach for free. So please make sure that you use it to your advantage in this game and in other aspects of life as well. Obviously, I have done enough conscious practice, so I'm able to do it without thinking. I knew if I tell Martinelli to run, I had already seen this space on the radar, all right? I can see Werner is through on goal. Bruno has long ball pass plus, so I went with L1 triangle. Now I know that Peter Crouch will be on the back post. It's not something I have to look for. So what do? I chip the ball up. I go for the header. It doesn't connect, but still. Now look at this. I have told Rolfa to run. I use a player lock. Then I tell Werner to do a step over straight. I tell Mbappe to run just to use him as a decoy, because it's a 2 versus 1. It can be sketchy when the keeper is running out at you and he's rushing. So this is what we do successfully and we score. Now see, my opponent, he is tracking Werner. I have told Balde to run. I'm not going to actually use him. So what do? I tell him to run, then I look at my opponent. And I tell Werner to come short. I do that by pressing RB, R1, and then I do a driven pass into step overs. It's an easy goal. If I didn't tell him to come short, maybe the center back would have intercepted the ball. See, once again, I'm using R1 dribbling and I've told Werner to run. I go with the through pass and I'm able to get the through pass. Then I use a player lock fake just to buy myself enough time. Sorloth is over there. It's a decisive goal. So we combined manual run with player lock fake. We ended up scoring a goal. This is how you open up the space. Not by using flashy tactics. 4-3-2-1, even if you use, it will not magically give you space. You have to create the space. I'm using 4-4-1-1 right now. If I use the 4-4-2, I'll still be able to create this space. This kind of space that you see on your screen. Because enough repetition, correct repetition, knowing the fundamentals of passing the ball in triangles, of using 3 players in the build-up, of triggering runs when I have space in front of me, when the opponent is tracking, calling the player shot, and doing it enough times that when I am playing crucial games, I don't have to consciously think about what I am doing. So I automatically see the space. When I automatically see the space, I automatically exploit it without thinking twice. And because that will allow me to have a higher tempo. And when I have a higher tempo, obviously it will be hard for opponent to defend my attacks. Now I want you to click here to check my latest custom tactics.